Hey everyone, Jacob and Riley with ConcealedCarry.com. We just got done doing a lot of training and practice, and I'll even say experimentation with MantisX. And I would say overall, we did learn a ton, both about MantisX and about kind of how that works and how that can help shooters.
Yeah, we've been here almost all day now. We've really been working it over. We've shot several hundred rounds, all with a MantisX attached to a Glock 19. In fact, Sam, would you? So here's the MantisX Glock 19. It's my personal firearm. No modifications to the gun. Standard Generation 4, standard trigger. Honestly, not the easiest gun to shoot accuracy-wise. I mean, there's definitely nicer triggers and things out there. We felt like this would be a pretty good baseline because it's a very common gun, a very popular gun. Glock 19 is one of the most popular guns in the world, and so everybody would shoot the same gun, same ammunition, same MantisX, and the MantisX is really interesting. I mean, it gives you such amazing real-time feedback. I'm not entirely certain how much that real-time feedback is helpful at all times, but I think when you take it on a whole and you look at it as a whole picture, it starts to paint a picture, a more accurate picture as far as what you're doing and things. I mean, definitely it was consistent about telling me that I tend to shoot a little bit to the left. And I already knew that about myself. My experience level is I've been shooting a long time. I've been instructing a long time now. I'm a decent shot, and I mean, I've got a nice tight grip here, but consistently I'm a little bit to the left, and it tells me what? Too little trigger finger. I've used more and more trigger finger. I tend, no matter how I place my finger on the trigger, I tend to always just slightly push it to the left. I've learned to deal with it. Not a big deal, because I just haven't ever figured that out. Jacob, tell us about your experience.
Yeah, a couple things I thought were noteworthy. One, I'm putting it on this morning because we're dealing with a gun with a polymer frame.
That's true.
That was interesting.
This is a well-known thing about Glocks.
At first, we started to really tighten this down as Riley was putting it on, and started to notice that was causing issues with the slide, being able to
compressing the forward part
it's just putting
of
too much pressure.
Frame.
And so we backed that off, and it was fine. In fact, I remember you made the comment to the effect of, if I back this off, I'm not sure if it'll stay on. And it stayed on the whole time. So I was really impressed with the fact that even on the polymer frame, even though we had to back it off, couldn't have it as tightened down as maybe we wanted, it still stayed on fine, and the gun ran fine. So we had no issues with it causing any malfunctions with the gun. But a tip to the wise, if you're using a polymer frame, you don't need to crank that thing down all the way. It's going to be fine as long as it feels solid. So that would be one thing I learned right away. It was really interesting for me. I mean, we had 5 different shooters today. You can see one target per person here. And I definitely saw improvement as people were shooting. We did 5 total rounds, 10 shots per round per shooter, and everybody shot
five kind of series.
5 series, thank you. And it was really interesting to see how we grew, and we tried to really be as scientific about it as we could. The first 2 series, no feedback. The shooter couldn't see the app, couldn't see what it was saying, no instruction at all. We took a break between the second and third series. We did a little bit of instruction as instructors for all the shooters, talked about what we were noticing. Everybody gave each other feedback. It was very helpful. And then on the following series, we were looking at the app. We were seeing what it was saying. And on the final series, the person holding the phone was giving live feedback. Hey, this shot did this shot did that. So I thought that was a really nice approach, and we could see it was working in that regard. A couple other thoughts that came to my mind. It's really interesting because the app is going to give you the right feedback no matter how good your shot was. So if every score is assigned a percentage, then 100% would be a perfect score. So I mean, a dead, perfect shot as far as the system is concerned is 100%. And there'd be times, Riley, for example, you'd shoot and I'd be holding the app, and it would say 93%, which is really good. I mean, you're nailing it, right? But it's still saying what you did wrong. And if you had done the exact same thing wrong, but done it more dramatically, I guess, more involved, done the same error but done it in a bigger way, it would have given us the exact same feedback, but instead of a 92, you would have had a 36 or 65.
As you're watching the screen of the app, the greater, it's kind of showing a circular graph, and the greater that goes outside the center circle, the more extreme the error is that the shooter's committing.
Yep.
And that's helpful, especially if you're giving feedback. It's helpful to probably suggest, hey, that was you're anticipating recoil pretty dramatically, or you anticipated just slightly. Because I know there was times I was getting feedback. I'm like, that wasn't that bad a shot, and really what it was probably wasn't that bad a shot.
I was just reading what was on the screen.
You were just giving me the feedback that
and so a thought I had was, as a shooter, in an ideal world, I'd have my phone on a tripod right about here, and I'd be shooting, and I'd look at my phone, I'd shoot again, I'd look at my phone, so I wouldn't have to take my gun off sight, and I'd be able to see it. That would be ideal world. Or, as you said, the person giving feedback could say, slight anticipating recoil, or slight healing, or dramatic healing, or whatever. Because a lot of times we'd give feedback to the shooter, and they would overcompensate for it.
Yep.
Breaking wrist down, next shot, breaking wrist up. And so it definitely, I think there's a little bit of a learning curve for the person who's giving feedback to the shooter from the app. And that was really interesting.
Yeah. Can we talk real quick just about some of the specific shooters? I went first, generally, for each of the different series. And, I have a pretty good group here. Now, we were shooting 7 yards. Are there guys out there I know you're going to look at and say, I can do better? Yeah, all right, that's probably true. But it wasn't a bad group. And I only have a few flyers here, but definitely a consistency to the left. And I do feel like towards the end, especially with the feedback I was getting from MantisX, that I was getting even tighter group down in this area. I really felt like that's where a lot of the shots were going towards the end. Here's the interesting thing. This is Jacob's target here. You started out a lot in this area. And as we went on, and even though your statistics show your last series was not as good as your third and fourth series, your shots were going more in this area.
Yeah, that last series, I just punched this out.
You really fixed, I think, honestly, you fixed a lot of shooting, technical deficiencies.
Yep.
And you brought that from being kind of an anticipation and a slapping the trigger maybe to some extent, and really nailing it in the center. Down here we've got, this is Sam's, right?
Yep.
And Sam, definitely, we're seeing a lot of tight shots down in here, but towards the end of the day, Sam was also getting a little better and starting to kind of, hone it in, bring it into the center. Craig, is one of our newest shooters as far as defensive handguns. This is not a platform he's really ever shot much. And starting out was kind of all over the place, but now we're starting to see a lot more of a grouping in this area here, a lot tighter in this area. He really, honestly, probably improved the greatest percentage.
Oh, by far. And here's the other thing to understand about MantisX. This piece of hardware can't see the target. It doesn't have a camera on it.
Right.
It doesn't actually have any idea where you're shooting. And in fact, the first time I learned about MantisX, I was at their booth, and they handed me an air gun, and they said, go ahead and shoot. I was like, what am I supposed to aim at? And they said, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So remember that the app is going to give you feedback based on the movement of the gun in the moment you break the trigger. It doesn't actually have any idea where you're hitting, because this is an issue of sight alignment.
It's essentially, it's waiting for that instant that a gun fires, and then it's remembering the path in the moments just immediately before that, and then it's also tracking a brief time afterward.
Correct.
As well.
So you might, in theory, you could take this shot, and it could, it's more about the grouping is what I'm trying to say than it is exactly where it hits the target, depending on how the person's sight alignment works. Now, in theory, if you have really good sight alignment, then it should also be in the bullseye. So there's so you might find you can really hone down the skills from the app and really figure out the trigger break and the grip and all those things. But if you're still not near the bullseye, then that's a sight alignment issue. And I would say to instructors, to instructors who are going to use this as a tool, I would make sure you go through some work with the students relative to sight alignment and sight picture. I would spend a lot of time on that, which we did not today, but I would spend some time on that before you hook up the app and start giving them lifetime feedback.
Well, that could be, but also you could take the reverse route too, where you're really focused just on the technical grip, trigger control, things of that nature, and you're fixing those issues. And then really it's a really simple matter. As we talked with Craig, it became apparent, after we were all said and done, that sight picture was really not a piece of this at all. And so we realized that he is really covering up a lot of the target with his front sight, and that's why he's hitting high. You were putting the center right on the top of the front sight. I tend to kind of place my front sight right on top of the bullseye. That's how I shoot. For me, it's kind of a defensive shooting sort of thing. And as we talked with Sam, he kind of did something similar. Corey was sighting more like you.
Yeah, Corey definitely was putting the bullseye right over front of the front sight.
Yep.
You know, an interesting thing, a person could, in theory, get rid of these targets and say, these are distractions. We're just going to shoot at the hill.
Yep.
And we're going to run MantisX. And you'd still get the same good feedback and potentially even more valuable for the shooter because you don't have the distraction of, well, where did I hit?
Sure.
But you're still getting the feedback from the app.
Now, this is Corey's target, and he's usually the guy that's behind the camera. In fact, he's behind the camera right now. And we saw a very similar thing with him. Earlier, there was a lot more shots. Like these, I'm positive, were some of his earliest shots.
Right out here. Yep.
Towards the end, like there was not a lot of breaking out of the center of the target, by about the third series. But fourth and after the fifth series, he was really, drilling it in the center of the bullseye. So you could definitely tell that, he was doing a good job sighting, but especially he was not making any major technical errors as relates to trigger control and grip and things of that nature.
Yep.
So overall, I mean, my impression of the day is that everybody here and working with the MantisX device, everybody improved as shooters today. And that'll show in the video. We'll probably be able to post and show what essentially what the statistics
kind of the
were.
growth. Yeah.
And you had a little bit maybe of an outlier with you on your final series, but overall I think we saw an improvement throughout the day.
A couple of things, if you're just new to MantisX, if you're considering buying one of these, some cool features that it has that I don't think we've really highlighted. In the app, very easily, right before you start shooting, you designate whether or not the shooter is right-handed or left-handed.
Yep.
And we learned there was a series where we made that mistake, and so we figured that out. So we have a southpaw. We had to make that adjustment.
Yep.
You can indicate whether or not you've mounted the MantisX on a rifle or a handgun. You can also indicate whether you're shooting live fire, dry fire, or CO2.
Yep.
And
so like
I think that's really
gun.
Yeah, airsoft. So I just that those are some cool features that I appreciate, and we'll try and get some screenshots in here. But it's really nice the way on the app it looks. You kind of you can see where on the target that shot probably hit. As you mentioned, you can see how dramatic the air was. You can tap on that air. You can get more information. It'll explain what the air means and how to correct it. You can also kind of see an overall graph, all the shots in that series, and it kind of gives you a sense for was I getting worse as I was shooting? Was I getting better? When did I rebound? Things like that. Also, is kind of a really cool kind of trace line in the app, and as you can see in the trace line, it kind of shows the actual movement of the muzzle of the weapon of the firearm as you're breaking the shot in those moments before you break the shot, really. And so that's really kind of cool too. And we I think. I would advise, if you're going to own this, and you should own this as a shooter, in my opinion, it'd be really valuable to learn how to really understand all those data points and all the different parts of the app and take all that feedback to heart.
Yeah. It's also important to understand that at one point we were providing live feedback to Craig, and he's like, what does that mean?
Yeah, like 3 times in a row we said the same thing. He's like, what does that mean?
Yeah, the cool thing about MantisX is it's kind of almost like an instructor in your pocket, right? Because it'll provide you this feedback, and if you don't know what something means as far as feedback, it has all the instructions in there. So anticipating recoil, and it explains what that means and how a shooter does that, and then also how a shooter can correct that. So they've really put a lot of thought into the user interface and providing all these tools so that really it becomes almost like a shooting instructor in your pocket. It certainly wouldn't replace a shooting instructor. And as we mentioned, we did also, like Craig, and he shot revolvers, and a revolver grip is very different from a semi-automatic, defensive style grip. And with just a little bit of instruction on that, and then seeing how he progressed, he saw a huge improvement from some of his middle series of shots to that final series. Once we worked with him on grip, and then working with MantisX and all that feedback, boy, he improved, I believe, by about 50%.
Yeah. A last thing I'll say that I really appreciate about MantisX is you only have to buy this hardware once.
Yeah.
But the app on the phone that's receiving the data live time from the device, they can update that all the time.
Yep.
And so something I really think just kind of cool about this kind of a product is the product's constantly getting better, but I don't have to buy more stuff.
Right.
So that would be another thought, is you can buy it today, and every time they improve the product, it just updates your app on your phone. Like you don't actually have to buy a new device. So that's something I really appreciate about MantisX.
Yep.
So those would be my thoughts. All around, very positive experience. I'm excited to use this more in instruction and personally as a shooter and take advantage of that feedback. My last personal note would be, there definitely have been times when I've been sitting at a range, I've been breaking shots on a gun, I've seen where the shots are going, and I've thought, well, I don't know how to improve. Like, what did I do? I really have no idea sometimes. What did I do wrong? I know what I should do, but I don't know in that particular instance how to improve. And so I really appreciate personally the feedback, and there are things I learned about my shooting today.
Yep.
So my experience with firearms is pretty intermediate. I've been around them most of my life, and I like to shoot them a lot. I don't go out as often as I do, as I'd like to. And other than that, I mean, at the beginning of today, I felt pretty confident, but I did learn a few tricks today that did help out. So I feel like I did learn and improve a little bit towards the end. Here's the target we were shooting. Mantis pretty much displayed the information that we see here is that it was shooting left. The only thing I liked about it was kind of offer you something to do to fix that problem. I mean, it's not too crazy. You can obviously see I was shooting left of the target, but again, the fact that it gives you something to do to fix that is pretty great.
So before today, really, I didn't have much experience at all with semi-automatic handguns. I had revolvers. I'm like, if you go on, look at my bio here at Concealed Carry Inc., I grew up in an unincorporated town in the middle of nowhere. I shot 22 rifles and just revolvers. Here is my target. With MantisX, it was showing that I had some improvement. The thing is, I do like that it explains to you specifics about what you're doing wrong if you don't know what that means. Like, I didn't realize, what was it? It was pushing it...
Breaking your wrist down.
Breaking wrist down, which is pretty much anticipating the shot. It was helpful to have it explained to you a little bit. However, I still don't think it equals having people around you with a higher grade of knowledge about it to give you even more feedback about it.
So I've been shooting for a while. Started shooting handguns 2012. Didn't have any formal background or any formal training in my background. Just kind of went out on my own. Had small tips from people I met on the range. As far as today and the MantisX goes, I feel like it definitely helped me improve a bit. It definitely kind of directed me to be aware of some of the things that I was doing. I always seemed to shoot to the right, and it felt like it kind of closed that gap a little bit today. It wasn't extremely to the right. It was a little more centered than I normally do. So overall, I would say the MantisX did help me understand a little bit of the flaws that I have in my shooting.
So hope you enjoyed this video. Go check out MantisX. It's available on our website and concealedcarry.com/shop, where you'll be able to see everything in our full online shop, and you'll find MantisX there. So go check it out.
Thanks, everyone.
I changed my grip dramatically.
But he could still have it in his car anyway.
What happens is you memorize that position.
Awesome experience working with each one of these guys.